Hello, this is Grace, and today I'll be performing a feminist film analysis on the cult classic film Legally Blonde. To start with the basic plot structure before we get into the analysis, Legally Blonde follows our main character, Elle Woods, who is a blonde, fashionably feminine sorority girl who's like the very definition of the color pink. She has a iconic sidekick, Bruiser, her pet chihuahua, and the movie starts with her in her senior year at CULA, which is a fictionalized version of UCLA, and she's getting ready to go on a date with her boyfriend, college sweetheart, Warner. When they go on their date, she believes that he's going to propose to her, but he actually ends up dumping her, which we'll get into later. This causes her to kind of go on a rampage to try and win him back, where she applies and gets into Harvard Law School. Now, through the film, she learns that she actually does have a passion for law and realizes that law is something that she can be good at and something that can fulfill her in her life, and realize that Warner is not that important to her, actually. I'm using a plethora of sources today in order to kind of create my analysis of the film. Many of these sources are not from scholarly journals. A lot of them are articles published by universities, especially ones that have law schools like U Chicago, because there's not a lot of focus on Legally Blonde in film analysis. The sources I'm going to be using are an article from the U Chicago Press entitled Getting Serious About Legally Blonde by Russell P. Johnson, a article from the Badger Herald, and it's called The Lasting Impact of Legally Blonde on Women College Students 20 Years Later by Ashley Grass, a Lexology reflection of women in the legal field by Shepard, and finally a journal about the how we can interpret Elle's character as being femme in queer culture by Andy Schwartz. So my argument here is that Legally Blonde is an example of third wave feminism that crosses the boundaries of class, gender, and race. This film provides representations of women in high power positions whilst also supporting the ideals of women standing with one another rather than allowing the patriarchy to pit them against each other. So the first scene I'd like to topic I want to address is Warner. The two scenes I've chosen for this analysis are the scene of Elle getting dumped at the restaurant at the beginning of the film, and then a little bit later on when she goes to Vivian's party where she dresses up as a Playboy bunny, and she was lied to that it was a costume party, and her and Warner have a conversation there.
What? Well, I've been thinking about it, and I think it's the right thing to do.
You're breaking up with me? I thought you were proposing.
Proposing? Hell, if I'm gonna be a senator, well, I need to marry a Jackie, not a Marilyn.
So you're breaking up with me because I'm too blonde?
So, Warner judges Elle based on her appearance in order to evaluate her intelligence. Because she presents herself as very conventionally attractive and kind of stereotypically feminine, he takes that as her being dumb, even though we know they have been together for many of their college years, if not all of them. It's not specifically stated in the movie. However, we learn later on that Elle crushes the LSATs. She has a 4.0 in fashion merchandising, and she's the president of her sorority. So she is an incredibly intelligent individual. However, because of her appearance, he judges her based on that. And he states, quote, well, I need to marry a Jackie, not a Marilyn, because he wants to be a senator by the time he's 30. So this is just an example of him undermining her intelligence because of the way she presents herself to the world. So another example of this, of him judging her based on her intelligence, is the scene at the party.
Never gonna get the grades to qualify for one of those spots. You're not smart enough, sweetie.
Wait, am I on glue, or did we not get into the same law school, Warner?
Well, yeah, but...
But what? We took the same LSATs, and we're taking the same classes.
I know, but... Come on, Elle, be serious. You can do something more valuable with your time.
I'm never going to be good enough for you, am I?
Oh, come on.
Just forget it.
Elle realizes this is a really kind of this lights a fire in Elle. This scene is a big turning point in the film when previously she was not really caring about her classes. She attended Harvard Law School just to get Warner back. There's an iconic scene of her in her first class where she only shows up with just a notebook and a pencil. And she hasn't done the reading, she hasn't done anything because she doesn't actually care about law at that point in the film. However, at this moment, Elle realizes that the person she came there for is never going to trust her or acknowledge her intelligence that she knows she has, which kind of drives her, which she says the quote, like, "You're never going to take me serious, aren't you?" As he accuses her of not being smart enough to get the Callahan summer internship, even though they took the same LSATs and they got into the same law school. Later in the film, though, we do learn that Warner actually did not get into Harvard Law School. He got waitlisted, and his father had to make a call. We learned that from Vivian, his new fiance. So Warner undermines Elle's intelligence based on her appearance, and is incredibly misogynistic towards her, and does not see her as someone that could be an equal partner to him, even though she is arguably more intelligent than he is. And Schwartz states that Warner finds himself single at the end of the movie while his two ex-girlfriends have become best friends, and this is a metaphor for Elle and Vivian's divestment from patriarchal ideology and a reinvestment in the bonds of sisterhood. So moving on to representations of women in high power positions, we have two that stand out to me, which is we have the woman law professor, and we also have the judge in the courtroom scene, it was a Black woman. And this is really impactful because of the fact that these are both very white male dominated fields, and we're able to see women be in them, and it's not made as a big deal. It's made as if this is a completely normal and understandable situation. And also in the courtroom scene, the opposing lawyer is a woman as well. So we're seeing an emphasis on women's education and women in these high-powered roles. Now, the salon is able to represent kind of a cross center of class and race boundaries, and it unites this community of women together. And this is especially seen in Paula and Elle's blooming friendship, as they're able to relate to each other on things like guys and experiences in their lives, but they're entirely different and would have never met each other if not for the salon. Because Paulette she says she's a high school dropout, she's later in life, she's in her mid-40s, and she works at this nail salon, whereas Elle is from California. She grew up in Bel Air. She comes from an incredibly privileged position. So these two sectors of class are able to make this beautiful friendship together. Schwartz states that Elle makes a fast friend in her nail technician Paulette, with whom she shares aesthetic sensibilities and an affinity for canine companions. The nail salon is often a working-class coded and racialized space. That Elle's excessive femininity goes unquestioned here, as well as in the wealthy suburbs of California, suggests that specific feminine cultures are place and class-based. Furthermore, her acceptance in both working-class and wealthy cultures of femininity suggests the potential for cross-class alliances. And this kind of is a really good example of the emphasis on community and sisterhood in the film, throughout the film, because we see women, they try to pit women against each other, but then it ultimately ends up with them working together in order to either win the case, make friendships, things like that. And we see this throughout. For example, Schwartz goes on to state that Elle's unconventional resume of feats is suggestive of a set of values that prioritizes strong community relationships and the skills developed within them, rather than impressive, institutionally sanctioned individual feats, an alien set of values within the East Coast Ivy League's community. Now, this is a really good segue into Elle's lack of prioritizing this high-level education. She does not put the fact that she's at Harvard on a pedestal, and we can see that in the iconic "What, like it's hard" scene.
Warner? I totally forgot you got here.
What are you talking about? I'm sorry, are you here to see me?
No, silly. I go here.
You go where?
Harvard. Law school.
You got into Harvard Law?
What, like it's hard?
She does not see herself as better than other people because she's attending Harvard Law. She only sees it as just another school. And that might be because it was so easy for her to get in, because she crushed her LSATs. This shows that she does not see herself as being better than others necessarily. For example, Johnson states that while Legally Blonde could simply exhibit female empowerment through a woman succeeding in the historically male-dominated legal field, it challenges viewers to consider where real empowerment comes from. Elle's flippancy about elite institutions invites us to reevaluate whether true power derives from class status or from local sites of mutual encouragement. Here again is that sense of community and the value of friendships and relationships rather than elitist notions of like Ivy League educations or high-paying jobs. And finally, to close this out, I'd like to address Elle winning the case at the end of the movie.
But thankfully, that same day, she entered the Beta Delta Pi wet t-shirt contest where she was completely hosed down from head to toe.
Objection. Why is this relevant?
Oh, I have a point, I promise.
Then make it.
Yes, ma'am. Chutney, why is it that Tracy Marcinko's curls were ruined when she got hosed down?
Because they got wet?
Exactly. Because isn't it the first cardinal rule of perm maintenance that you're forbidden to wet your hair for at least 24 hours after getting a perm at the risk of deactivating the ammonium thioglycolate?
Yes.
And wouldn't somebody who's had, say, 30 perms before in their life be well aware of this rule?
Case by using her knowledge of like knowledge deemed less than or trivial about hair care and hair maintenance, while also she uses this incredibly scientific knowledge of how perms work and how you can't get a perm wet, but she combines it with this story about a wet t-shirt contest at her sorority in order to win the case. So she's kind of merging both like this high intelligence world and her past like sorority life, or what some might deem as like trivial or like not intelligent or dumb, in order to actually become a successful lawyer. And when she actually wins the case, she's dressed exactly where she feels like she's representing herself best. She's dressed in a full pink pantsuit, while previously she had been donning black and more like stabilizing colors and more quote-unquote serious colors, whereas at the end of the film, when she actually becomes successful, she's wearing her signature hot pink color. So this film has had lasting effects on the legal profession and women being involved in the legal profession, and while it's difficult to actually like tie data directly to Legally Blonde, we can see that the legal sector has traditionally been and in many ways remains to be dominated by men. However, in the last 20 years, the scales have been tipped dramatically, with women now comprising more than 57% of the profession from Shepard. And in the last 20 years, that's where we can track from Legally Blonde's release in the early 2000s. And personally, I don't believe that it's any kind of coincidence, because this film allows women who might not see themselves as being like the stereotypical lawyer as having a place in the law field. And as a personal anecdote, Legally Blonde is actually what inspired me to attend law school, which is what I'm doing next year. I had never seen law as a potential career field for me. Even though I'd always wanted to help people, I saw myself doing that in roles of like a teacher or something else like in that kind of realm. And then it wasn't until I was watching Legally Blonde, which just so happens to be one of my favorite movies, that I saw myself in Elle's character and her care and compassion in helping others, and I saw that that could be a potential for me. So I know firsthand what this film can do for other women, and while I can acknowledge that there are many issues within the film and how it could be entirely like revamped and modernized for better representation, I think that for its time period of the early 2000s, when women were constantly being berated for expressing their sexuality or expressing intelligence at the same time as that, I think it made incredible strides for representation in the legal field. And now we can see a whole host of lawyers who were inspired by Legally Blonde and by Elle Woods to go and take on the legal field. So thank you so much. I hope this conveyed just how much I care about this film and how much I truly do believe that this film allows us to have a representation of both class, gender, and race in one film, and how that can contribute to representations in the legal field. Thanks.